that at 17 years old, I volunteered to serve in the United States Army. I called myself being grown. I said, Mama, I'm going to the Army, but I need your signature to let me go. And I cried for the first 2 weeks at basic training because Mama never made me do those things that the drill sergeant had me do. So I got indoctrinated at an early age about patriotism. And this evening, I just want to spend a couple minutes. Now, understand that I am a preacher, so when I say a couple of minutes, time is relative. But I want to speak to you this evening about the importance of voting. I wish that we had more younger people in the audience this evening because this is something that they really need to understand. So I really have like two ways that I want to talk about the importance of voting. I really want to look at some voting rights history and then our responsibility as voters. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And I will do my best to keep you entertained, and the cheesecake was awesome. I could only eat a little bit. I had people watching me. But my goal this evening is to persuade you to talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, your loved ones, your co-workers, to make sure that they cast their ballots this November. Too much is at stake. Our Supreme Court, Congress, the House of Representatives, sheriffs, mayor's office, governors, judges, city council, school board members, all this is at stake, and we have an opportunity to change the course of our nation, change the course of our communities. Every single vote counts. When you think about voting, we need to remember how we got here. The right to vote did not automatically happen. Many people lost their lives in pursuit of this basic right. If we could just for a moment, let's briefly look at some voting rights history in the United States of America. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 granted citizenship, but it did not grant the right to vote to all native-born Americans. In 1869, Congress passes the 15th Amendment, giving African Americans the right to vote. That was in 1869. 1896, Louisiana passes a grandfather clause. And this clause kept former slaves and their descendants from voting. As a result of this legislation, registered black voters dropped from 44.8% all the way down. It was a big decline. In 1920, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was passed, and that law prohibited the United States citizens from being denied their right to vote solely based on their sex. Up until that point, most states disenfranchised women. In 1964, we have the poll taxes being outlawed with the adoption of the 24th Amendment. And then in 1965, more than 500 nonviolent civil rights marchers were attacked by law enforcement crossing the bridge to Selma, Alabama, from Montgomery to Selma. And they demanded for African American voting rights. And that same year, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law, permanently barring barriers to political participation by ethnic and racial minorities, prohibiting any election practice that denies the right to vote on account of race. By the end of 1965, over 250,000 new black voters were registered, and most of them by federal examiners. Then we jump up to 1970. President Richard Nixon signed an extension to the Voting Rights Act, and he is quoted saying, "The Voting Rights Act of 1965 has opened participation in the political process." It's almost novel for us to think today that a Republican would do such a thing. And then we get to 1975, Gerald Ford, he signed an extension of the Voting Rights Act, another Republican president. President Ronald Reagan signed a 25-year extension to the Voting Rights Act. And then we go into the 2000s. Congress extended Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act for an additional 25 years. But in 2011, it seems like the whole political process changed. And I wonder why. In 2011, all this changed. In 2011, there were a record number of restrictions to the Voting Rights Acts were introduced by state legislatures nationwide, including photo ID requirements. They cut early voting and voter registration. Many of these states had a history of voter discrimination and are covered under the Voting Rights Act. That same year, Texas passed one of the nation's most restrictive voter ID laws. Under the Voting Rights Act, the states were required to submit a pre-clearance application. If the state was involved in voter discrimination in the past, the law was they had to submit any changes to the Voter Rights Act. 2011, South Carolina passed a restrictive voter ID law that kept more than 180,000 African Americans from casting their ballot. In 2013, there was a Supreme Court case. We should all be familiar with this case. It was Shelby County versus Holder. The Supreme Court decided that they could remove the critical part of the law that evaluated states that had the worst rights on voting. That law had been identified by this part where states had to submit a pre-clearance application. Supreme Court struck that down. They said it was no longer valid. We didn't need that anymore. And the reason why all this happened in 2011 was preparation for the election in 2012. See, when we elect people, elections have consequences. We put people in office and these people have decided to rig the system. But we hear the Republican candidate says the system is rigged. He is absolutely right, it is rigged. But it was rigged in their favor. They passed these laws that made it harder for people to vote. They claimed all of this issues with voter fraud. I think they did Washington Post did an investigation. They only found 31 credible incidents out of 1 billion votes. 31 confirmed incidents of voter fraud out of 1 billion. But the quest of we have to restrict voter registration, we have to pass these laws to keep people from voting. This is our importance, that we understand how important this really is. This is something that we have to make sure that we keep in our minds when we cast our ballots. Then let's look at the path to the presidency. We're in an election cycle this year. Many people like you and I will cast their ballots on election day, fulfilling the most basic action in a democratic society. Voting is a fundamental process that keeps our system of government working. Through elections, citizens have the ability to decide on who represents them in government, be it a local official, a state, or a national representative, or even the President of the United States. On election day, voters will not only be able to select their representatives in government for the next term, but they will also have the ability to decide on measures like bond issues that grants the government permission to borrow money for construction. And sometimes we even have the opportunity to vote on social issues like gay marriage and banning smoking in restaurants and bars. Our responsibility, we must read up on the issues. We must read up on the candidates, researching the ballot is also a responsibility to each and every citizen. Knowing where you go vote, the voter locations. This is something that we have a responsibility to do and share with others. The responsibility should not be taken lightly, because your voice with many other in unison can change the direction of a community, a state, a nation, even the world. Given the importance of elections in the United States, why do so many people choose not to vote? Why do some refuse to participate in elections when the officials and the issues voted on have such strong influence over every aspect of our lives? Many argue that a vote really doesn't count. I disagree with that. Even if we live in a state that we know for a fact is not going to go whichever political party we decide on a presidential election, those local elections is what count. That's what really affects our lives more than who's the president, who's the city council, who's on the school board, who's the sheriff, because these are the people who affect our lives every single day. And if they don't share the same values that we share, why would we vote them into office? Why would we stay home and just allow them to be hired? There's no other system in the world where we would just allow someone to come in and just be hired and we have no say so. If you had an organization, your own company, you just wouldn't let anybody walk through the door and say, well, I guess you're it. But yet, when it comes to our elections, we take a back seat sometimes. But I want to encourage you not to take a back seat this time. There's too much at stake. Others still say that they don't know where or how to vote or how to register. That is inexcusable. There is too much. You can Google anything, and we all Google everything. Let you have a headache for more than 2 days. You'll punch right in Google. I've had a headache for 2 days. WebMD will pop up and tell you, have you seen your doctor? Have you checked your blood pressure? Well, the same information is available as it relates to the candidates, as it relates to the voting precincts, as it relates to the issues, as it relates to what they stand for. Sometimes we allow news stories to change our opinion. We allow these political ads that deter us and make us feel like we're going to lose anyway. But I'm here to tell you this evening, every vote counts. What do you think of these reasons? How would you respond to a family member or a friend that used those excuses? With a government elected by its citizens and that affects every aspect of our lives, from school to healthcare to homeland security, voting is an important right in our society. By voting, you are making your voice heard and registering your opinion on how you think the government should operate. Enough voices in unison can elect someone to office, reaffirm someone to office, or even change the course of our government. Most candidates have websites that detail their ideas and their goals for that particular office. It's our responsibility to read what they say. Words matter. To find out where to vote, you can contact your local voter board of registration, and they will tell you where to go vote. I would be remiss this evening if I did not speak about Donald Trump to a group of Democrats. I know that's what you were waiting on. I know that you were waiting on that part, like, yeah, Mr. Patton, we get all that, we understand our civic duty, but tell us something about the opposing candidate. We have several candidates this year who are running for the highest office in the land. Something that should not be taken lightly. Something that each and every person should care about. Donald Trump, his slogan is, let's make America great again. My question is, what does he mean when he says again? I guess America was great when slavery was legal. Let's go back to that America. I guess America was great when women and blacks couldn't vote. Let's go back to that America. Oh, he must means, let's go back to Jim Crow. Or maybe he's talking about when our economy was losing over 350,000 jobs every month. Let's go back to that America. I'm trying to figure out, what does he mean by that statement? America is already great. America is by no means perfect. But the idea of America is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness makes America great. Being able to voice your concerns to your elected officials makes America great. Yes. We don't need Donald Trump to tell us how America can be great. As a matter of fact, we can ensure that America stays great by voting the first woman to the presidency of the United States of America. Let's cast our vote for Hillary Rodham Clinton this November. And let's show Donald Trump how great America really is. And as a side note, let's pray for good weather on November 7th and November 8th. I ask that you be in prayer with me. Those are all of my written comments. I thank you for inviting me to speak. I hope that I've said something that will encourage you to get out and vote. Each person should tell someone about the importance of voting. May God bless you and the United States of America. Now, I was told that I need to be available for questions. Are there any questions? And your hand immediately popped up.
I don't have a question, but I just finished reading John Lewis's Across That Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I get emotional just thinking about it. John Lewis marched with Martin Luther King.
Yes.
And was nearly killed on that Pettus Bridge. And he has this little book, but he also has 3 graphic novels that are just awesome. A lot of schools are buying the graphic novels for kids. But it's a little book, Across That Bridge. John Lewis, he's a congressman for the precinct that includes Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
He's awesome.
I agree.
Any questions? I know someone has a Donald Trump.
We can just
I
say,
think what you were saying, I think that's exactly what Donald Trump wants to do, is take us back to those times.
I agree.
When white men had all the power.
I agree.
didn't Ronald Reagan say that first, let's make America great? Wasn't he the one? I don't think Donald Trump has an original thought. He just, he gets somebody will say, well, when people were questioning his sanity, which a lot of people did at one point, and the very next day he came out and said that Hillary Clinton was loony. I mean, he doesn't have an original thought. He just takes other people's thoughts and puts them out there, and it's very
Crazy.
Now, this is my personal thought, so
I'm appalled.
let me just clarify that part. This is Antron's thoughts about Donald Trump. Please don't quote me. This is off the record. But I honestly believe that, and this is my thought, I don't believe that he has the qualifications to hold that office, period. I work in a hospital, but that doesn't qualify me to be your doctor. I don't think anyone in here would trust me with that. Is Antron, you're a good guy, we like you, but you're not qualified to perform surgery on me. Donald Trump doesn't have those qualifications, in my opinion. Now, I do understand the angst and frustration with you know, some certain people. I get it. I mean, we have a right to do that, and I would never deny them their right to be upset and to vote whoever they wanna vote for. But my personal opinion is, the election is pretty clear. You have someone who has the experience, who has the temperament to do the job, period. She is qualified. I mean, regardless if we like everything she's done, I mean, I'm sure my wife does not like everything that I do. But that doesn't mean she's gonna divorce me because she doesn't like everything I do. And I hear this all the time with people, well, we're doomed either way. I disagree. I disagree. We're doomed one way. And that's if we stay home and we allow Donald Trump, someone who used to be in the WWE, a reality TV star, I mean, to be our president. What does that say to the rest of the world, that if we allow this guy to represent us? Because ultimately, he is our representative to the world.
Yes, he is.
And that is the highest office. I just can't see him sitting down with heads of states and having a rational conversation. I mean, I personally can't see it. Now, I may be biased, but I don't personally see him functioning in that capacity. I don't see the rest of the world leaders taking him serious. I don't see it.
From my understanding, I heard over the news that he said that it came out of he don't want president. If he get to be president, he's going to point people to do everything. He's a businessman. But if he's president, he's gonna be pointing people to do all the work for him. He
Right.
just gonna be there. But, you know, that still don't work that way. You know, he's president, but he's gonna point. Now, that came out of his mouth.
I mean, the things
That
that
come out
he's,
of his mouth. He's gonna be appointing people to do all of that.
I have
If
a
he
lot,
don't know it, he's gonna be appointing the people.
I have a lot of Republican friends,
Yeah.
and I believe in common sense approach to politics. I'm not so far left wing. I mean, that's not really where I'm at. But I just believe that common sense approach. You can't say, and this is what gets me on these conservative values, less government. But you want the government to be small, but large enough to determine what's in a woman's uterus.
Yes.
You want the government to be small, but you want enough agents to deport 11 million people. You want the government to be small, but you want a larger military. You want to cut taxes on everybody. So you want the government to take in less revenue, but do more. Now, I know that we all working people, and we have to do that. I have a house, and I didn't get a raise when I bought the house. But I know that my income is limited. So I can't go on and take on new projects without adding new revenue, and that's what our taxes do. Our taxes create revenue so the government can function. But this conservative mindset of reduce government, reduce taxes, well, we take in less, but how are we gonna do more? Then we end up going into debt, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in now. Because they like to talk tough and go to war. They're all old enough to remember all the wars that they've been involved in, and who pays for it? We do, the taxpayer.
That's right, that's all on the credit card.
Yeah, and then when someone else is elected in office, well, it's your fault. No, it's not. But it's just the fact of how the government works. So that's just really how I look at it. I get austerity, I disagree with it. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy paying all my taxes either, but I understand it's essential, and that's how the government works. That's how we fund the government. That's how we get those programs that the state can't pay for. So it's just a part of life. Unless there's any other questions, because I can speak all evening about this, but I don't want to take up your time. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, what is your message to the younger voters in particular who are really very energized by the Bernie Sanders campaign, but are not so energized by Hillary Clinton and are looking to those third-party candidates?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't understand the Bernie appeal. This is just my thoughts. I get the fact that he promoted the free college. I get it. I don't know how we would do it, but I get it. What I try to tell young voters is that they really need to look at the issues. It's one thing to like a particular candidate in the Democratic Party. Everybody has a right to who they like. But when it comes down to the general election, to me, there really is not another option. There is no way if I'm a Democrat, that I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump because I dislike some of the things that Hillary Clinton said. And that's the thing that I try to explain to them. My own children, well, we like Bernie. I'm like, why? And they really couldn't give me an answer as to why. Well, because my friends like Bernie. You know, they're on Twitter and they're on Instagram, and so it's kind of younger people have more of a following type of mentality. They go along with the crowd. But when you really tax them on the issues, they really don't have a whole lot of support. I would encourage them to really look at what the two candidates stand for, and then make your decision based on the issues, not on personal preference. You probably wasn't born when Hillary was the first lady, but you know, I get it. Bernie seemed to be cool, and you know, so the younger people got caught up in that. Not saying that I disagree with Bernie or his politics, but the question was, what would I tell young people who were kind of dissatisfied with Hillary that were Bernie supporters? I would ask them to look and evaluate the issues between Donald Trump and his presidency versus Hillary Clinton and her presidency.
I think I would tell them also to read the Democratic platform.
Correct.
And remind them that Bernie was very influential
He
in
was.
getting some of the components
I
of
agree.
that platform.
Like the free college, you know, for junior colleges.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he was very influential,
He-
so
he really
they could
was.
still, in a sense, be voting for the Bernie idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Really,
mean, I
truly,
get
I
it.
think
We're
Bernie-
so
that's what
passionate
he
about
wanted.
politics that, you know, if our candidate didn't win, you know, a lot of those supporters were, well, Bernie or die. I mean, I get that, but the bigger picture is he didn't win the nomination. But if you're really a Democrat,
Well,
I don't
he's
see
not.
why would you be
He's
looking
not a
at Donald Trump.
Democrat.
What's the alternative?
And I agree.
I'm not gonna vote, you say, I'm not gonna vote for Hillary, cause you don't like Hillary, you don't like, because Bernie didn't do it. What's the alternative? Hillary's the nomination, the nominee,
I agree.
so you have to say, Donald Trump? I don't think so. So.
I mean, that's how I rationalize it, like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna vote for Donald.
She's a good.
Yes,
I
she
agree.
is.
Yes, sir.
So even though polls lately, you know, finally showing that it looks like Donald Trump doesn't have a great chance of winning. There was a while there where it was pretty scary. And so my question is, what do you think was behind that? Well, you gave us a little bit of clue in your talk what was really behind it, but
Well, and I think that the polls are actually gonna tighten up again, and the reason I say that is because the media loves an underdog story. I mean, that's something they love, and for whatever reason, he gets 24/7 coverage, like I've never seen a candidate get that much coverage ever. He rails against the media, but honestly, I mean, they are doing more to help him than hurt him. Every time he speaks anywhere, they cover it, the whole speech. So I honestly believe that, let's not be so sure. Let's make sure that we shore up all of the supporters. Let's not look at the polls today and say, well, she's up in every swing state. That's gonna change, it's gonna tighten up. If his puppet masters can keep him on task, and he reads from a teleprompter for the next 77 days, there is a strong possibility it will be a tight race. Let's not be so confident right now. Let's celebrate on November 9th.
Yes.
but
I mean, so
what do
that's
you-
what I honestly believe. It's gonna
what are
tighten back
people
up.
thinking when they support him? What do you think they're
They
thinking?
say they like the fact that he is not politically correct. Now, as far as I'm concerned, people who are not politically correct are just rude. Frankly, that's what it is. It's that they're happy that somebody is be able to stand up and be rude in front of the whole world.
And that is fascinating to a lot of people. Someone who doesn't use the typical politician vernacular. He really speaks in very plain terms. You're losing. You suck. You suck. I win. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. Believe me. I mean, he's really not saying anything. But what he is saying in their mind, they interpreted something different. Oh, he said, believe me. I believe him. He's a billionaire. That may be true, but he's not gonna make you a billionaire. It's almost like they think they got the winning lottery ticket with Donald Trump. Like everything is gonna, he doesn't understand how government works.
No, you really don't.
I mean, it doesn't, the president does not control the purse strings of the United States of America.
Thank goodness.
Congress does. So he can speak all that. We're gonna make Mexico pay. How? How is that possible? How are you gonna tell another nation, pay for my wall? I don't get it. Yes, sir.
I think a lot of what his rhetoric is, to be truthful, I think it's a Second Amendment, which I'm not sure a lot of people even know what that means, but, and I believe the other part is racial.
I agree.
You know,
What is,
it's racial rhetoric from the very beginning, of sending Mexican people back to Mexico, you know, you're going, what?
and there are some people that sounds like the gospel to their ears when they say that.
Yes.
I think Donald Trump says publicly what a lot of people think privately, and that's the attraction. Now, the issue with the Second Amendment, I'm trying to think, when did the Democrat Party decide that we wanted to take away people's guns? I mean, I don't ever remember
It's not any
that
part of it.
piece of legislation ever. Did I miss it? I'm only 41. I mean, maybe there was a time where we wanted to, but I had a coworker come to me a few years back, and she said, "Do you know anybody selling a gun?" I said, "No." She knew I used to be a police officer. I said, "No, I don't." I gotta buy a gun before Obama takes our guns.
Well, that's the.
Where did they get this? What does Obama ever? He doesn't have that ability to take people's guns.
That's the NRA, and have you noticed that the Second Amendment is the only one that mentions the word regulated?
Right.
Regulated,
Well-regulated militia.
that's the only one.
And they take that as like Democrats don't have guns or we're against guns. We're not against guns. I don't see what's the problem with a background check for people. We have to have a background check for everything. I have to have a background check to get my job. No matter how qualified I am, if I am a criminal, they're gonna say, "We thank you for applying, but your application has no longer been accepted." I don't understand the issue with that. I don't see what's wrong with a background check. I mean,
No,
I don't understand. I don't understand why do they feel as though that's a violation of their rights. I don't understand it. And I try to rationalize them. I have some strong Republican friends, and I'm like, when did we do that? I mean, and they can never give me an answer. Oh, well, we're not. Nobody wants that.
Yes, sir. I was gonna agree that they only agree with the Second Amendment because they only read half of it.
but it's a little, it's just a small thing.
But the other thing on the racial, I don't know if y'all noticed, but the first place that a representative of the Trump campaign went after the Republican convention was Donald Jr. going to Philadelphia, Mississippi, which is where the 3 civil rights workers, Cheney, Goodman, and Swerner, were killed, fighting for voting rights. And he spoke to a all-white audience, was in favor of keeping the rebel flag on the Mississippi flag. I mean, and that's not even an under-the-table kind of message. That is very much, yeah, that's.
In your face.
My thing with the racial component, now some will say, disagree with me. I just think that the Republicans take social issues and they make those wedge issues to divide us.
Yes.
We're really not that different. And We're really not. I mean, everybody wants to be able to work, wants to be able to provide for their families. That's not a Republican or a Democratic issue, that's an American issue.
That's a human.
But they take these, and I see this is what they do, because I've watched them. They take a few wedge issues and they say, well, liberals want gays to marry. Liberals, I'm like, as a Christian, this is my politics. As a Christian, my moral beliefs are private. What I believe, you may not believe that. And why do we try to take this, our Constitution, and make it the Bible? It's not the Bible. It's a document that governs our country. It's not fair to discriminate against anybody. Period.
Religious freedom.
Right, but they want to take your freedoms away. Well, as a Christian, I'm a preacher. I preach against certain things. But that's not something that I want the government to engage in. That's something that I do privately.
That's right.
So I believe that there should be a separation between church and state in that regard. I mean, I'm okay if they say you can't pray in school because everybody doesn't say the same prayer that you pray. I respect that. I'm not gonna go out and fight and join the Republican Party because of that. But they take these issues and they divide us over these, and it's just a few issues: abortion, gay rights, and guns. And they divide us over these three issues that we have been dealing with since the inception of the Constitution of the United States of America.
They try to keep us afraid.
And then those who follow and subscribe to this philosophy that I have to be a Republican because I am a Christian and Christian values, I think that's where they throw them those bones, because if you actually look at their policies, it really doesn't help them at all. And I guess that means my time is up.
We've enjoyed you very much.
I told y'all I could talk.
Well, and the reason I'm doing this is someone else has asked me if they can have a few minutes to
Absolutely.
speak, and I know how their few minutes are.
Absolutely.
Gene, would you come here?
I basically want to make a report of the committee that we've just organized over the last few weeks. We called it the Writing Committee. We might call it the website, social media,